Naomi Richardson mopped floors at Anderson's elite martial arts academy before dawn, invisible among the champions who trained there, content to keep her head down and her past buried. But Sensei Marcus Drake noticed something unusual about the way this quiet janitor moved, something too controlled, too precise. So he did what arrogant men do and challenged her to spar just for fun, mocking her in front of his students with cameras ready to capture her humiliation. Except Drake never asked why a former fighter who once made headlines had vanished from the martial arts world completely. And today, Naomi was about to remind everyone that some floors are cleaned by hands that once shook entire arenas. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. The sun hadn't even considered rising when Naomi pushed through the back door of Anderson's elite martial arts academy. 5 in the morning felt different in this part of town. The kind of different where streetlights still hummed and the air tasted like yesterday's rain mixed with tomorrow's possibilities. She flicked on the lights and the fluorescent buzz filled the empty dojo like an old friend saying hello. Naomi was 34, though some days she felt twice that. Her cleaning uniform hung loose on her frame, the navy blue pants frayed at the ankles from too many washes and not enough money for replacements. She tied her thick, natural hair back with a rubber band she'd found in the supply closet last week. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. That was the story of her life lately. Not pretty, but it worked. She pulled her phone from her pocket and plugged in her earbuds. The motivational affirmations started playing, the same ones she'd been listening to for 3 months now. A woman's voice, smooth and certain, told her that she was stronger than she knew. That every challenge was an opportunity. That her current situation didn't define her future. Naomi wanted to believe it. Some mornings, she almost did. The mop bucket rolled across the hardwood floor with a familiar squeak. She'd been cleaning this dojo for 8 months now, and she knew every inch of it. The water sloshed as she dunked the mop head, wrung it out, and began her routine. Long, smooth strokes, corner to corner. The wood gleamed under her effort, reflecting the championship posters that lined the walls. Faces of winners stared down at her. Trophies in glass cases caught the light. This place was a temple to success, and she was the person who kept it spotless. Her movements were methodical, almost meditative. Push forward, pull back, repeat. The rhythm steadied her mind. She thought about Jordan, her 9-year-old son, still asleep in their tiny apartment 3 blocks away. She thought about the notice that had slipped under their door yesterday. Red letters screaming, "Final warning." Rent was due in 5 days, and she was $200 short. $200 might as well have been $2,000. The front door chimed at 6:15. Students began trickling in, gym bags slung over shoulders, conversations about weekend plans and upcoming belt tests. They stepped around her mop without looking down. She was part of the scenery, invisible furniture. Only one kid ever acknowledged her. "Morning, Miss Naomi." Eli's voice was soft, almost apologetic. He was 15, tall and gangly, with kind eyes that seemed too old for his face. Naomi looked up and smiled. "Morning, Eli. Big test today?" "Next week," he said, shifting his weight. "I'm nervous. You'll do fine. I've seen you practice. You've got good form." His face brightened. "Thanks. That means a lot." He hesitated, then added, "My mom works 2 jobs too. I know it's hard." Naomi's chest tightened. "You tell your mom she's doing great, and so are you." He nodded and headed toward the locker room. That kid had more heart than half the black belts in this place combined. At 6:30 sharp, the energy in the room shifted. Everyone stood a little straighter. Conversations dropped to whispers. Sensei Marcus Drake had arrived. Drake was 47, built like he'd been carved from oak and attitude. He walked in like he owned not just the dojo, but the entire block. Regional black belt champion 3 years running. His reputation preceded him like a drum roll. Students bowed as he passed. He didn't always bow back. "Let's go, people. Line up. I didn't pay for this space so you could stand around gossiping like a bunch of school kids." His voice boomed across the room, all gravel and authority. Naomi moved her mop bucket toward the corner, trying to stay out of the way. She watched him from the edge of her vision. The way he moved was impressive, she couldn't deny that. Sharp, precise, controlled. Every strike in his warm-up routine landed exactly where he intended. But there was something else, too. Something harder to name. Arrogance, maybe. Or the kind of confidence that had forgotten humility along the way. Drake barked corrections at students, his words sharp but effective. "Tighten that stance, Rivera. You're wobbling like a newborn deer." The student adjusted immediately. "Better. Again." As Naomi reached to move her mop bucket, her foot caught on the wheel. The handle tipped forward, falling fast. Without thinking, her hand shot out and caught it mid-air, stopping it cold about 6 inches from the ground. The movement was smooth, instinctive, controlled. Muscle memory from another lifetime. Drake's eyes flicked toward her. His correction to a student died on his lips for just a second. He stared at her hand gripping the mop handle the way her body had shifted to absorb the momentum. Then his expression changed into something between amusement and dismissal. He turned back to his students without a word, but Naomi had seen it. That flicker, that split second where he'd noticed something, didn't quite add up. She finished mopping quickly after that, keeping her head down. By 7:30, she clocked out, grabbed her worn canvas bag, and headed for the door. The morning sun hit her face, warm and forgiving. She had 45 minutes before Jordan's school bus came. Just enough time. Jordan was awake when she got home, sitting at their small kitchen table with a bowl of cereal. Their apartment was small. One bedroom that they shared, a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to stand in, and a living room with a couch she'd found on the curb and reupholstered herself. But it was theirs, at least for 5 more days. "Morning, baby." She kissed the top of his head. "Morning, Mama. How was work?" "Same as always. Floors don't mop themselves." Jordan looked up at her with those bright, curious eyes. "Do you think I could learn karate, like the kids at your work?" Naomi's heart squeezed. She sat down across from him. "You want to learn karate?" "Yeah, it looks so cool. And the kids say Sensei Drake is like the best fighter in the whole city." She chose her words carefully. "Karate costs money, Jordan. Money we don't have right now." His face fell. "Oh, yeah, I know." She reached across the table and took his hand. "But you know what? Sometimes watching teaches you more than doing. You can learn a lot just by paying attention." "Really?" "Really. The best students aren't always the ones in the uniform. Sometimes they're the ones who watch closely and think deeply." He seemed to consider this. "So I can still learn even if I'm not in the class?" "Exactly." She squeezed his hand. "You're smarter than you think, baby." After she dropped Jordan at the bus stop, Naomi headed to her second job, Millie's Diner on 5th Avenue. The breakfast rush was brutal, and her feet already hurt from the morning's cleaning. But Rent didn't care about tired feet. She worked until 3 in the afternoon, refilling coffee cups and memorizing orders and smiling at customers who sometimes tipped well and sometimes didn't tip at all. By the time she picked Jordan up from the after-school program, her legs felt like concrete, and her back ached in 3 different places. That evening, while Jordan did his homework at the kitchen table, Naomi sat on the couch and stared at the notice on the refrigerator. Final warning. She'd already called her landlord twice. He'd been patient, but patience had limits. "Mama, are you okay?" Jordan's voice pulled her back. "Yeah, baby. Just tired." "You're always tired. That's what happens when you work hard. Is that why you don't smile as much anymore?" The question hit her like a punch she hadn't seen coming. She got up, walked to the table, and knelt beside his chair. I smile when I'm with you. That's what matters. He hugged her, his small arms tight around her neck. I love you, Mama. I love you too, Jordan, more than anything. The next morning, Naomi arrived at the dojo at the same time. 5 in the morning. Same routine. Same mop bucket. Same fluorescent lights. But something felt different. She couldn't name it, but it hung in the air like static before a storm. She was halfway through mopping when Tessa, the receptionist, walked in early. Tessa was 26, blonde, always dressed like she was going to a business meeting instead of sitting at a front desk. "Morning," Tessa said, setting her purse down behind the counter. "Morning." Tessa watched her for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" Naomi paused. "Sure. Do you know the dojo chant? The one Sensei Drake makes everyone recite before competitions?" Naomi's hands tightened on the mop handle. "Why do you ask?" "Because yesterday I heard you humming it, like perfectly. And that chant is something you only learn if you've trained here for years." Naomi kept her voice even. "Maybe I just heard it enough times." Tessa's eyes narrowed, but not unkindly, more curious than suspicious. "Maybe. Or maybe there's more to you than mopping floors." Before Naomi could respond, the students started arriving. The moment passed, but Tessa's question lingered in the air. Later that morning, while Naomi was wiping down the mirrors in the training area, Eli approached her. He looked nervous, fidgeting with the strap of his gym bag. "Miss Naomi, can I tell you something?" "Of course. I think you're really brave." She blinked, caught off guard. "Brave? Why would you say that?" "Because you work 2 jobs and you still show up every day. You don't complain. You just do what needs to be done. I wish my mom was as brave as you." Naomi's throat tightened. She put down the cleaning cloth and looked at him. "Your mom is brave, Eli. Any parent doing their best is brave. But let me tell you something important. Bravery isn't loud. It's not about showing off or making noise. Real bravery is quiet. It happens when no one's watching." Eli nodded slowly, taking in her words. "That makes sense. You're a good kid. Don't forget that." He smiled and headed to class. Naomi watched him go, wishing more people in this world had his kind of heart. That afternoon, after the advanced class finished, Drake stayed late reviewing security footage in his office. He did this sometimes, analyzing techniques, critiquing form. But today he scrolled back further than usual. Back to late-night footage from the week before. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. The dojo was empty, or it should have been. But there, on the screen, was Naomi, alone in the center of the floor, moving through a kata with slow, deliberate precision. Her movements were clean, controlled. Not the movements of someone who'd watched a few classes. These were the movements of someone trained. Drake leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. He rewound the footage and watched again. The way she shifted her weight, the angle of her strikes, the balance in her stance. This wasn't amateur hour. This was real skill. He smirked, leaning back in his chair. Well, well, what do we have here? But the smirk wasn't respectful. It was the smirk of someone who'd just found a new toy to play with. The next morning, Drake arrived at the dojo with a different energy. Naomi noticed it immediately. The way he watched her, the way his eyes followed her movements across the floor. She kept her head down and her pace steady. During the midday class, with 15 students lined up and ready, Drake suddenly clapped his hands together. "All right, everyone, gather around. I've got an idea." The students formed a semicircle. Naomi was wiping down the windows near the back wall, trying to disappear into the background. "You know what we need?" Drake's voice was loud, performative. "We need some fresh perspective in here, some new energy." The students exchanged confused glances. Drake turned and pointed directly at Naomi. "Maybe our janitor should teach the next class." The room erupted in laughter. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind of laughter that comes easy when someone in power makes a joke. The kind that doesn't think about who it lands on. Naomi froze. Her cleaning cloth hung limp in her hand. She felt every eye in the room turn toward her. Her jaw tightened. Her shoulders tensed. But she didn't look up. She couldn't. Drake grinned, soaking in the laughter. "Come on, I'm just kidding. But seriously, you move pretty well for someone pushing a mop, Naomi. Ever think about stepping onto the mat?" The laughter faded into awkward silence. No one knew if he was still joking or being serious. Naomi's voice was quiet but steady. "I'm here to clean, Sensei, not compete." Right, of course." Drake waved his hand dismissively. "Back to work, everyone." The students dispersed, whispers trailing behind them. Eli looked uncomfortable. Tessa stared at her computer screen, pretending she hadn't heard anything, but Naomi had heard it. Every word, every laugh. And something inside her that had been dormant for years began to stir. The sting of Drake's joke lingered in the air long after the students left that afternoon. Naomi stayed late to finish cleaning the locker rooms, scrubbing tiles that didn't really need scrubbing. She needed the time to settle her thoughts, to remind herself that words were just words, that she'd survived worse, that this job was necessary. But her hands shook as she wrung out the mop one final time. The next day, Drake's attitude shifted from playful mockery to something more pointed. During afternoon cleanup, while Naomi was emptying the trash near the training mats, he walked past carrying a stack of towels. Without warning, he tossed one in her direction. It landed at her feet. "You've got good balance," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Why don't you show us some moves?" Several students were still in the dojo, stretching after class. They looked up, sensing the tension. Naomi bent down, picked up the towel, and folded it neatly. "Like I said, Sensei, I'm here to clean, not compete." "Oh, come on, don't be modest." Drake crossed, his arms, a smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. "I saw the way you caught that mop handle the other day. That wasn't luck. That was training." The students stopped stretching. This wasn't a casual conversation anymore. "Everyone's got reflexes," Naomi said evenly, placing the folded towel on the bench. "Doesn't mean anything special." "Reflexes?" Drake laughed. "Nah, that was technique. I know technique when I see it." A few students chuckled nervously. Tessa, sitting at the front desk, kept her eyes glued to her paperwork. Eli, still packing up his gear in the corner, looked like he wanted to disappear. Naomi met Drake's eyes for the first time. "I appreciate the observation, but I've got work to do." She turned to leave, but Drake's voice followed her. "Must be hard, though, having skills and having to hide them behind a mop bucket." The words landed exactly how he intended. Sharp. Cutting. Designed to provoke. But Naomi didn't take the bait. She kept walking, her footsteps steady on the polished floor. She heard the students whispering behind her, heard Drake chuckle to himself. But she didn't stop. She didn't turn around. She just left. When she got home that evening, Jordan was waiting at the kitchen table, his homework spread out in front of him. But he wasn't looking at his math problems. He was staring at something in his hand. "Mama, what's this?" Naomi's stomach dropped. In his palm was a small bronze medal, tarnished with age. Her name was engraved across the bottom. 3rd place. Regional Martial Arts Championship. 12 years ago. "Where did you find that?" "In your drawer. I was looking for batteries." His eyes were wide with confusion and awe. "You did karate? Like real karate?" Naomi sat down slowly. She hadn't looked at that medal in years. Hadn't even remembered it was still in the drawer. "A long time ago, baby. Before you were born. Why didn't you tell me?" His voice wasn't accusatory, just curious. Hurt, maybe. "Because it's not who I am anymore." "But you were good. This says 3rd place. That's really good." Naomi took the medal from his hand and turned it over, feeling the weight of it. "Yeah, I was okay." So why'd you stop? The question she'd been asking herself for over a decade. Why'd you stop, Naomi? The answer was complicated. Too complicated for a 9-year-old. Too complicated for most days. Because sometimes winning costs too much, she said quietly, and I wasn't willing to pay that price anymore. Jordan studied her face, trying to understand. Did something bad happen? Yeah, baby. Something bad happened. He didn't push further. He just reached out and held her hand across the table. That kid had an old soul. Too old for 9 years. The next morning at the dojo, the whispers had grown louder. Naomi heard them as soon as she walked in. Students huddled in corners, voices low but animated. Tessa was on her phone, scrolling through something with intense focus. Morning, Naomi said as she passed the front desk. Tessa looked up, startled. Oh, morning. She hesitated, then added. People are talking. About what? About you. About whether you actually know martial arts. Someone said you trained under some famous master who disappeared after a scandal. Naomi's blood went cold. That's ridiculous. Is it? Tessa's voice was soft, not accusatory. Just asking. Naomi didn't answer. She grabbed her mop bucket and headed toward the training floor, but her mind was spinning. How did rumors spread so fast? Who had been digging into her past? Later that morning, she got her answer. Drake was in his office with the door half open. Naomi passed by on her way to restock paper towels, and she heard his voice, low and focused. She shouldn't have stopped, shouldn't have listened, but she did. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, Drake said into his phone. Old tournament footage from about 12 years ago. There's this knockout spin kick clean as hell. Made headlines for a minute. Silence while the person on the other end spoke. Naomi Richardson. She's my janitor now. Can you believe that? He laughed. Yeah, I know. Fall from grace or what? Naomi's hands clenched around the paper towel package. He'd been researching her, looking her up, digging through her past like it was entertainment. She forced herself to keep walking. Her chest felt tight, her breathing shallow. But she kept moving. That afternoon, Drake cornered her again. This time there was no audience, just the two of them in the hallway near the supply closet. I know who you are, he said simply. Naomi stopped, didn't turn around. Naomi Richardson, regional finalist 12 years ago, trained under Vincent Lee before he retired. Drake stepped closer. You were good, real good. So what happened? I left. Nobody just leaves. I did. He circled around so he was facing her. Here's what I think. I think something scared you. I think you ran. And now you're hiding behind cleaning supplies because it's easier than facing whatever broke you. Naomi's eyes met his, and for the first time there was fire in them. You don't know anything about me. Then prove it. He crossed his arms. One spar. Just for fun. Show me what you've got left. No. Why not? Afraid you'll lose? I'm not afraid of losing. I'm afraid of what happens when I win. The words hung between them, heavy and honest. Drake's expression shifted just slightly. Confusion flickered across his face. One spar, he repeated, softer this time. That's all I'm asking. The answer is no. She walked away, leaving him standing in the hallway. But his voice followed her one more time. Fear is just weakness wearing a mask, Naomi. The words echoed in her ears all day. Through her shift at the diner, through dinner with Jordan, through the sleepless hours she spent staring at the ceiling that night. Fear is just weakness wearing a mask. She wanted to believe he was wrong, wanted to believe she'd left martial arts for noble reasons, for safety, for peace. But deep down, in the parts of herself she didn't like to examine, she knew there was truth in his cruelty. She had run, and she'd been running ever since. 2 days later, Drake made his move public. During the evening class, with the dojo packed full of students and parents, he clapped his hands for attention. Announcement, everyone. We're going to do something special next week. A friendly exhibition match. He paused for effect. Between me and our very own Naomi Richardson. The room went silent. Then the whispers exploded. Naomi, who was wiping down the mirrors in the back, froze. Her reflection stared back at her, wide-eyed and trapped. "That's right," Drake continued, his voice booming with showmanship. "Turns out our janitor has some serious skills. So we're going to have a little fun. Let her show us what she's got." Students turned to look at her. Parents craned their necks. Phones came out. Naomi's voice cut through the noise. "I never agreed to that." Drake turned to face her, his expression innocent. "Come on, Naomi. It's just for fun. Unless you're scared." The challenge was clear, public, undeniable. "I told you no. And I'm telling you it'll be good for everyone. The students will learn. You'll get to step back onto the mat where you belong. It's a win-win. For who? For everyone." His smile was sharp. "Unless you think you can't hang anymore." The students laughed. Not loud, not cruel, but enough. Enough to make Naomi's face burn. Enough to make her hands shake. She wanted to scream. Wanted to walk out. Wanted to tell him exactly where he could shove his exhibition match. But she needed this job. Needed the money. Needed to keep her head down and survive. "One condition," she heard herself say. Drake's eyebrows raised. "What's that?" "If I win, you fund a scholarship program, free training for underprivileged kids who can't afford it." The room went quiet again. Drake studied her, trying to figure out if she was serious. "And if I win?" he asked. "Then I'll quit. You'll never see me again." His smile widened. "Deal." They shook hands in the center of the dojo, and the room erupted in applause and excited chatter. But Naomi felt numb. She'd just agreed to something she swore she'd never do again. That night she sat in the dark of her apartment, staring at the bronze medal Jordan had found. 3rd place. Not first. Not even second. 3rd. Because when it mattered most, she'd choked. She'd hesitated, and someone had paid the price. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Heard about the match, proud of you. Stay strong." No name. But she knew who it was. Mr. Hahn, her old mentor, the man who'd trained her, the man who'd held her while she sobbed after the accident, the man she hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. In the other room, Jordan was asleep, dreaming whatever 9-year-olds dream about. She thought about his face when he found that medal. The pride, the curiosity, the hope. Maybe this wasn't about Drake. Maybe it wasn't even about the scholarship. Maybe it was about showing her son that falling down didn't mean staying down. She picked up her phone and typed a response. "Thank you. I'll try." 3 dots appeared. Then his reply. "Don't try. Remember." Naomi closed her eyes and let herself remember. The feel of the mat under her bare feet. The sound of her breathing syncing with her movements. The clarity that came when everything else fell away and only the fight remained. She'd been running for 12 years. Maybe it was time to stop. Naomi had made her decision, but the weight of it settled on her shoulders like a storm cloud that wouldn't move. The next morning at the dojo felt different. Word had spread fast. By the time she arrived at 5 in the morning with her mop bucket, there were already 3 messages on the dojo's social media page asking about the exhibition match. Drake had made it official, posting about it like it was the event of the year. "The janitor versus the champion," one comment read. "This is either going to be hilarious or legendary." Another said, "I'm driving 2 hours to see this. No way I'm missing it." The martial arts community was small, tightly knit, and hungry for drama. Within 24 hours, the story had rippled through gyms, training centers, and online forums across the region. "Did you hear about the match at Anderson's Elite? Some cleaning lady is challenging Sensei Drake." Naomi tried to ignore it. She mopped the floors with the same steady rhythm as always, but her mind kept drifting. What had she done? What had she agreed to? The fear sat in her chest like a stone, cold and unmoving. When Jordan woke up that morning and she told him about the match, his reaction surprised her. His face lit up like Christmas morning. "You're really going to fight him? In front of everyone?" "It's not a fight, baby. It's a spar. There's a difference. But you're going to show them what you can do." He bounced in his chair, nearly spilling his cereal. "Mama, you're going to be so cool." She wanted to share his excitement, but all she felt was dread. "Jordan, listen to me. This isn't about being cool. This is about doing something I said I'd never do again." His smile faded slightly. "Why did you say you'd never do it?" "Because the last time I fought, someone got hurt. Really hurt." Jordan reached across the table and took her hand, his small fingers wrapping around hers. "But you didn't mean to hurt them, right?" "No, I didn't mean to." "Then it wasn't your fault, Mama. Accidents happen." The simplicity of his logic made her throat tighten. If only the world worked that way. If only guilt listened to reason. "You're going to show them," Jordan said again, his voice filled with faith she didn't feel. "You're going to show everyone." She squeezed his hand and tried to smile. "We'll see, baby. We'll see." That afternoon, after her shift at the diner, Naomi did something she hadn't done in 12 years. She went to see Mr. Han. His studio was on the south side of town, tucked between a laundromat and a convenience store. The sign above the door was faded. Han's Rehabilitation and Wellness Center. It wasn't a traditional dojo anymore. After he retired from competitive training, Mr. Han had shifted his focus to helping people recover from injuries, teaching gentle movement and meditation. Naomi stood outside for 5 minutes before she found the courage to walk in. The bell above the door chimed softly. The space inside was warm, lit by natural light streaming through large windows. Mats covered the floor, and the walls were decorated with calligraphy scrolls. Soft instrumental music played from a speaker in the corner. Mr. Han emerged from the back room, and when he saw her, he stopped. He was in his 60s now, his hair fully gray, his movements slower, but still graceful. His eyes, though, were the same. Kind. Knowing. Seeing straight through to the parts of her she tried to hide. "Naomi," he said softly. "Hi, Mr. Han." They stood there for a moment, the weight of 12 years hanging between them. Then he smiled and opened his arms. She walked into the hug, and for the first time in days, she felt something close to safe. "I heard about the match," he said, pulling back to look at her. "I'm shocked you agreed." "So am I." He gestured to the mats. "Sit. Tell me everything." They sat cross-legged facing each other, the way they used to during her training years ago. Naomi told him about the dojo, about Drake's mockery, about the scholarship program she'd promised. She told him about Jordan's pride and her own fear. Mr. Han listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "You were never defeated, Naomi," he said. "You were broken. There's a difference. Defeat happens on the mat. Being broken happens in here." He tapped his chest. "And in here." He tapped his temple. "But broken things can be fixed." "I don't know if I can do this." "Can't or won't?" The question stung. "What's the difference?" "Can't means you lack ability. Won't means you lack courage." "Which is it?" Naomi looked down at her hands. Hands that had cleaned floors for 8 months. Hands that used to strike with precision and power. "I'm scared." "Of losing?" "Of winning." Mr. Han studied her. "You're scared of what winning might awaken in you, the part of yourself you've been trying to bury." Tears pricked her eyes. "The last time I fought with everything I had, someone died." "That wasn't your fault." "Everyone says that, but it doesn't change what happened." Mr. Han leaned forward. "You can't fight the past with your fists, Naomi, but you can honor it with your truth. That young man's death was a tragedy. But you hiding your gifts, pretending to be less than you are, doesn't honor him. It dishonors you both." The words cut through her defenses. She wiped her eyes quickly. "Will you help me prepare?" she asked. "I'll do better than that. I'll help you remember who you are." For the next week, Naomi's life became a carefully choreographed dance of survival and preparation. Mornings at the dojo, cleaning floors while Drake trained publicly, his sessions now packed with extra spectators hoping to catch a glimpse of the upcoming match. Afternoons at the diner, serving coffee and burgers to customers who had no idea their waitress was about to step into a fight. Evenings with Jordan, helping with homework and pretending everything was normal. And late nights at Mr. Han's studio, training. The training wasn't what she expected. Mr. Han didn't make her throw punches or practice kicks. Instead, he focused on breathing, on balance, on stillness. "You're not preparing to fight," he told her. "You're preparing to remember." They practiced simple movements. Step forward, shift weight, return to center. Over and over. The repetition was meditative, hypnotic. Her body began to remember things her mind had forgotten. The way her muscles engaged, the rhythm of breath syncing with motion, the clarity that came when she stopped thinking and started feeling. One night, as she practiced a basic kata, Mr. Han stopped her. "Do you hear that?" She paused, listening. At first, all she heard was silence. Then, faintly, she heard the sound of her own breathing. Steady, calm, controlled. "That's your center," he said. "That's where you fight from. Not from anger, not from fear. From here." Meanwhile, Drake's preparation was the opposite. He trained publicly, posting videos online, inviting local media to watch his sessions. He pushed his students harder, his sessions becoming aggressive displays of power. Every strike was loud, every movement exaggerated. He was building a spectacle, and he knew it. "The janitor thinks she can step onto my mat," he said in one interview. "I respect the courage, but courage doesn't beat skill. This is going to be a lesson for everyone watching. Know your place." The comments section exploded. Half the people supported Drake, calling Naomi delusional for challenging a champion. The other half rooted for the underdog, hoping to see arrogance get humbled. At the dojo, the students were divided. Some openly mocked Naomi during her cleaning shifts, making exaggerated karate sounds as she passed. Others, like Eli, quietly left encouraging notes in places only she would find them. One morning, she discovered a brand new pair of training gloves in her supply closet with a note. "You've got this." Tessa's attitude shifted too. One afternoon, she approached Naomi while she was restocking paper towels. "I owe you an apology," Tessa said quietly. Naomi looked up, surprised. "I laughed when Drake first made fun of you. I didn't think about how it felt. I just followed his lead because everyone else was." Tessa's face was flushed with shame. "That was wrong. I'm sorry." Naomi set down the paper towels. "Thank you for saying that. For what it's worth, I hope you beat him. He needs to be reminded that respect goes both ways." The night before the match, Naomi couldn't sleep. She sat on the couch in their small apartment, staring at the wall, her mind racing through every possible outcome. What if she froze? What if her body didn't remember? What if she hurt Drake the way she'd hurt that young fighter 12 years ago? Jordan shuffled out of the bedroom in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Mama, why are you still awake?" "Just thinking, baby. Go back to bed." Instead, he sat down next to her and leaned his head against her shoulder. "Are you scared?" "Yeah, I'm scared." "Of losing?" "Of a lot of things." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jordan said something that broke her heart and mended it at the same time. "If you fall tomorrow, I'll still clap. Because you got back up. That's what matters." Naomi wrapped her arm around him and kissed the top of his head. "How did you get so wise?" "I learned from you." She held him until he fell asleep, then carried him back to bed. When she returned to the couch, she picked up her phone and texted Mr. Han. "I'm ready." His response came immediately. "You always were." The morning of the match arrived with a sky that couldn't decide between rain and sun. Naomi stood in front of the mirror in her apartment, staring at her reflection. She wore simple black pants and a plain white tank top. No fancy gear, no logos, just her. Jordan stood in the doorway watching her. "You look like a fighter, Mama." "I look like someone who's about to make a big mistake." "No, you look like someone who's brave." She turned and knelt down to his level. "Listen to me, Jordan. No matter what happens today, I need you to know something. I'm doing this for us. For you. To show you that standing up for yourself matters even when it's hard." "I already know that, Mama. You show me every day." They hugged, tight and long, and Naomi tried to memorize the feeling. Just in case everything went wrong, Mr. Han picked them up at noon. The match was scheduled for 1 in the afternoon, giving people time to gather. When they arrived at the dojo, Naomi's stomach dropped. The parking lot was packed. Cars lined the street. People stood outside waiting to get in. "This is insane," she whispered. "This is what happens when a story touches people," Mr. Han replied. "You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for everyone who's ever been underestimated." Inside, the dojo had been transformed. The mats were arranged in a large square in the center, surrounded by chairs and standing room. Cameras were set up in corners. A local sports blogger stood near the entrance with a microphone. The energy buzzed like a live wire. Naomi spotted Drake near the back, surrounded by his top students. He wore his official black jai with his name embroidered in gold thread. Sponsors' logos decorated his shoulders. He looked every bit the champion. When he saw her, he grinned and waved mockingly. Eli appeared at her side. "You okay, Miss Naomi?" "Honestly, no. That's okay. Being nervous means you care." He handed her a bottle of water. "Mr. Han taught you well, right? A long time ago. Muscle memory doesn't forget. Trust yourself." She smiled at him. "When did you get so smart?" "I had a good teacher." He nodded toward her. "Even when she was holding a mop." At 12:45, the dojo doors closed. The crowd settled. Tessa stepped into the center of the mat with a microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to what we're calling a friendly exhibition match. Today, Sensei Marcus Drake, 3-time regional champion, will spar with Naomi Richardson, a former competitor making her return to the mat." Tessa's voice was professional, but when she glanced at Naomi, there was warmth in her eyes. "This is a non-competitive spar. Points will not be scored. The goal is skill demonstration and mutual respect." Mutual respect. Naomi almost laughed at the irony. "Fighters, please step forward." Naomi's legs felt like they were made of lead. She walked to the edge of the mat, slipped off her shoes, and stepped onto the smooth surface. It felt familiar and foreign at the same time. Drake was already there, stretching his shoulders, rolling his neck. He looked relaxed, confident, like this was just another Tuesday. They met in the center. Tessa stepped back. The room went silent. Naomi bowed formally, deeply, the way Mr. Han had taught her years ago. A bow of respect for the art, for the space, for the moment. Drake gave a casual half nod, barely a bow at all. The contrast wasn't lost on the audience. "Good luck," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You're going to need it." "May we both learn something today," Naomi replied. He smirked. "Oh, I'm going to teach you something, all right." Tessa raised her hand. "Begin." Drake moved first, stepping in with a quick jab toward her shoulder. It wasn't meant to hurt, just to test. Naomi blocked it cleanly, redirecting his energy to the side. He followed with another strike, this one faster. She blocked again. "Still cleaning floors with that stance," he said loud enough for the front row to hear. A few people laughed. Naomi said nothing. She just watched him, studied his movements, the way he shifted his weight, the rhythm of his attacks. He was fast, powerful, but predictable. He fought with ego, and ego had patterns. He threw a combination, 3 quick strikes aimed at her torso and head. She deflected the first 2 and ducked under the third. The audience gasped softly. "Not bad," Drake admitted. "But let's see how you handle this." He increased his speed, his attacks coming harder now. Naomi defended, her movements economical, precise. She didn't waste energy on unnecessary motion. Every block, every deflection was calculated. Mr. Han's words echoed in her mind. "Fight from your center." Drake was breathing heavier now, frustration creeping into his expression. He'd expected her to crumble, to show weakness, to prove his point. Instead, she was matching him step for step. "Come on," he shouted. "Fight back, or are you just going to hide?" Naomi's eyes stayed calm. A true fighter doesn't need to prove anything. Her voice was quiet, but in the silence of the dojo, everyone heard it. Drake's jaw clenched. He decided to escalate. He stepped back, took a breath, and launched into a spinning back kick, the kind designed to look impressive. The kind that would make good footage for his social media. But it was also the kind that left you vulnerable if your opponent knew what they were doing. Naomi sidestepped it effortlessly, her body flowing like water around stone. The kick sailed past her, and Drake stumbled slightly, off balance for just a second. The audience gasped louder this time. Someone in the back row whispered, "Did you see that?" Drake recovered quickly, but the damage was done. His confidence had cracked just a little. "Getting tired?" Naomi asked softly. His eyes flashed with anger. "You haven't even touched me yet. What are you afraid of?" "I'm not afraid. I'm patient." "Patience is just fear with a nice name." Naomi tilted her head slightly. "Is it? Or is aggression just insecurity with a loud voice?" The audience murmured. A few people chuckled. Drake's face flushed. He attacked again, harder now, sloppier. His strikes lost precision. He was fighting with emotion instead of strategy. And it showed. Naomi continued to defend, her breathing steady, her movements graceful. Then in one fluid motion, she did something that changed everything. Drake threw a wild hook punch. Naomi didn't just block it. She caught his wrist, redirected his momentum, and used his own force to guide him past her. The technique was so clean, so perfectly executed, that it looked choreographed. But it wasn't. It was pure skill. Drake stumbled forward, his balance completely disrupted. The audience erupted in whispers and gasps. "Whoa," someone said. "Did she just—" "That was incredible." Drake spun around, his face red, his breathing ragged. "Hit me! Come on, hit me! Show me what you've got!" Naomi stood perfectly still, her hands loose at her sides. "Why? So you can feel like this is real combat? This isn't a fight, Sensei. You said so yourself. It's just for fun." The words landed like a slap. The audience was silent, hanging on every moment. Drake charged. Not a calculated strike, but a full-body lunge fueled by wounded pride. It was reckless, desperate, the kind of move that wins bar fights but loses matches. Naomi saw it coming from a mile away. She pivoted smoothly to the side, and Drake's own momentum carried him forward. His foot caught awkwardly, and he began to fall. Fast, hard, heading straight for the floor. And that's when Naomi did something no one expected. She reached out and caught him. Her hands gripped his shoulder and arm, stopping his fall mid-motion. She absorbed his weight, steadied him, and gently guided him back to standing. The dojo went completely silent. You could hear the hum of the overhead lights, someone's phone buzzing in their pocket, breathing. Drake stood there, held upright by the woman he'd mocked, the woman he'd challenged, the woman he'd underestimated. His chest heaved. Sweat dripped from his forehead, and for the first time he looked at her and really saw her. "You could have let me fall," he said quietly. "I could have. But that's not who I am. She released him and stepped back. The audience remained frozen, processing what they'd just witnessed. Then Eli started clapping. Slow, steady, respectful. One person joined him, then another, then another. Within seconds, the entire dojo was applauding. Not the wild cheers of a knockout, but the reverent applause of people who'd just witnessed something deeper than a fight. They'd witnessed mastery. They'd witnessed control. They'd witnessed what it meant to be strong enough to show mercy. Drake stood in the center of the mat, his arms hanging at his sides, his carefully constructed image crumbling around him. He looked at Naomi, and for the first time since she'd started working at his dojo, he bowed. A real bow, deep and genuine. Naomi bowed back. Tessa stepped forward, but she didn't need to announce anything. The match was over. Not because someone had won, but because the point had been made. As the crowd continued to applaud, Naomi walked to the edge of the mat where Jordan and Mr. Han stood waiting. Jordan threw his arms around her waist and she lifted him up, holding him tight. "You didn't fall, Mama," he whispered in her ear. "No, baby, I didn't fall." Mr. Han smiled at her, pride shining in his eyes. "You remembered." Across the mat, Drake remained standing alone, watching her. Phones were out now, recording, capturing the moment. Someone shouted, "That was amazing!" Another called out, "Respect!" But Naomi wasn't paying attention to any of it. She was holding her son, feeling the warmth of Mr. Han's hand on her shoulder, and allowing herself for the first time in 12 years to feel proud of who she was. Drake approached slowly. The crowd quieted, curious. He stopped a few feet away. "You held back." "I held space," Naomi corrected. "There's a difference." He nodded slowly, understanding settling on his face. "The scholarship. I'll fund it. You earned it." "We both did," Naomi said quietly. "Now do we clean together?" The metaphor wasn't lost on him. His lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile but wasn't far from it. "Yeah," he said. "I think we do." The cameras flashed. The phones recorded. And somewhere in that crowded dojo, a story began spreading that would travel far beyond those walls. A story about a janitor and a champion, about humility and pride, about falling and catching, about what it really means to fight. The match ended at 2:15 in the afternoon. By 3 o'clock, the first video had been uploaded. By 4, it had 10,000 views. By 6, it had gone viral. Naomi sat in her apartment with Jordan, eating microwaved mac and cheese when her phone started buzzing. Not just one notification, a flood of them. Text messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Friend requests on social media she barely used. Emails from reporters, bloggers, and talk shows. "Mama, your phone won't stop," Jordan said, looking at the screen lighting up on the table. She picked it up and started scrolling. The headlines made her stomach twist. "Single mom janitor humbles arrogant sensei in viral sparring match." "Watch. Cleaning lady shows champion the real meaning of strength." The most respectful knockout you'll ever see. The video had been clipped, edited, and shared across every platform. The moment she caught Drake mid-fall played on loop, accompanied by captions like, "This is what real mastery looks like," and "Humble him without hurting him." Comments flooded in by the thousands. "I'm crying. This is what martial arts should be about. She didn't just win the fight, she won my respect. That man learned more in 5 minutes than he probably taught in 5 years." But there were other comments, too. Harsher ones. Fake, staged for views. He obviously let her win. No way a janitor beats a champion. This is what happens when we prioritize feelings over facts. Jordan leaned over her shoulder, reading. "Why are people being mean? Because some people can't handle seeing something that challenges what they believe." Her phone rang, an unknown number. She answered hesitantly. Is this Naomi Richardson? A woman's voice, professional and rushed. Yes. Hi, I'm calling from Morning Metro News. We'd love to have you on for an interview tomorrow morning. We can send a car, provide compensation for your time. I'm not interested. Thank you. Naomi hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Another reporter. She declined. It rang a third time. She turned it off. Mama, aren't you excited? Everyone wants to talk to you. Naomi looked at her son, his eyes bright with pride and excitement. Baby, I didn't do this for attention. I did it to stand up for myself, that's all. But you're famous now. Famous doesn't pay rent, Jordan, and it doesn't make us dinner. Even as she said it, she knew things had changed. There was no going back to invisible now. The next morning, Naomi arrived at the dojo at her usual time, 5 a.m, mop bucket in hand. But when she unlocked the door, she found a crowd of people waiting outside. Not students, reporters, cameras, microphones. Naomi, can we ask you a few questions? What inspired you to challenge Sensei Drake? Do you have any formal training? She pushed through without answering, her heart pounding. Once inside, she locked the door behind her and leaned against it, breathing hard. They've been out there since dawn. Naomi jumped. Tessa stood near the front desk, holding 2 cups of coffee. She offered one to Naomi. Thanks, Naomi said, taking it gratefully. It's chaos. The phone's been ringing nonstop. People wanting to join the dojo, people wanting to meet you, sponsors reaching out. Tessa shook her head. Drake's in his office. He hasn't come out yet. Is he okay? Honestly, I don't know. His ego took a hit, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Inside the dojo, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Students arrived for the morning class, but instead of their usual routines, they gathered in clusters, whispering and showing each other videos on their phones. Some looked at Naomi with new respect, others with resentment. She embarrassed him, one student muttered to another near the water fountain. No, she taught him something, Eli countered, his voice firm. There's a difference. The argument grew louder. Sides were forming. Half the class believed Naomi had done something honorable. The other half felt she'd disrespected their sensei and made the dojo look weak. Drake finally emerged from his office at 7. He looked tired, the confidence that usually radiated from him dimmed. When he entered the training floor, the room fell silent. He stood at the front, arms crossed, surveying his students. I know what you're all thinking. I know what's being said online, so let me make something clear. He paused, his jaw tight. What happened yesterday was between me and Naomi. It was a learning experience, for both of us. If any of you have a problem with that, there's the door. Nobody moved. Good. Now line up. We have work to do. The class proceeded, but the tension remained. Naomi cleaned quietly in the corner, trying to stay out of the way. But she felt the eyes on her, the whispers, the judgment and admiration swirling in equal measure. After class, Drake approached her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. I meant what I said, he finally offered. About the scholarship. I know. But I need time to set it up properly. Funding, structure, all that. I understand. He looked like he wanted to say more but couldn't find the words. Instead, he nodded and walked away. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Tessa called Naomi over to the front desk, her expression concerned. Someone wants to talk to you, says he knew you from before. A man stepped into view from the waiting area. He was in his late 50s, wearing an expensive suit, his gray hair slicked back. Recognition hit Naomi like cold water. Victor Kane, the promoter who'd been trying to make her a star 12 years ago. The man who'd disappeared after the scandal. Naomi, he said, his voice smooth and familiar. It's been a long time. Her mouth went dry. What are you doing here? I saw the video. Everyone saw the video. and I recognized you immediately." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You disappeared after that tournament, never gave your side of the story, never explained what really happened." There was nothing to explain. There was everything to explain. The media crucified you, called you reckless, dangerous. But I was there, Naomi. I saw what happened. It wasn't your fault. Old wounds ripped open. I don't want to talk about this. You don't have to talk to me. But the world is watching you again. And they're going to dig. They're going to find out about Camden Taylor, about the accident, about why you vanished. His eyes were sharp but not unkind. You can control the narrative, or you can let it control you. Jordan appeared in the doorway, home early from his after-school program. "Mama?" Victor glanced at the boy, then back at Naomi. He handed her a business card. "When you're ready to tell your story properly, call me." He left without another word. Jordan walked over, his backpack sliding off one shoulder. Who was that? Someone from a long time ago. He seemed serious. He was. Naomi tucked the business card into her pocket, her mind racing. That evening, donations started appearing. A GoFundMe page had been created by someone Naomi didn't even know, titled, "Help Naomi's Clean Fight Foundation." People were contributing. $10, $20. Some gave $100. The comments were full of encouragement. "For everyone who's been underestimated. This woman represents everything right about martial arts. My daughter watched the video and said she wants to be like Naomi when she grows up." By the end of the night, the fund had raised over $15,000. Naomi stared at her phone screen in disbelief. This can't be real. Mr. Han, sitting across from her at the small kitchen table, smiled. "People respond to authenticity. You showed them something real. But I didn't do anything special. You did exactly what was needed. You showed control when everyone expected violence. You showed grace when they expected humiliation. That's not common, Naomi. That's rare." Jordan, already in his pajamas, climbed into his mother's lap. "Does this mean I can learn karate for real now?" Naomi laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. "Yeah, baby, I think it does." But as the night settled and Jordan fell asleep, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Victor's words echoed in her mind. They're going to dig. They're going to find out. She pulled out her phone and searched her own name. The articles were already there, buried under the viral videos, but rising. Old news reports from 12 years ago. Headlines she'd tried to forget. Rising star, Naomi Richardson, involved in fatal tournament accident. Fighter dies after match with Richardson. Controversy surrounds young martial artist's future. Her hands trembled as she read. The comments beneath the articles were vicious even after all these years. She killed someone and walked away. Where is the justice? She should never be allowed to fight again. Tears blurred her vision. She closed the browser quickly, but the damage was done. The past was catching up. And tomorrow, the world would know everything. Naomi didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Jordan snored softly beside her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, Camden Taylor. 19 years old, full of fire and potential. She saw the tournament ring, the referee's signal, the match beginning. She was 22 then, undefeated in her division. Camden was the underdog, fighting his way up through the ranks. The match was supposed to be straightforward. She was faster, more experienced. But Camden fought with heart, refusing to back down. In the third round, he came at her with a spinning combination. She countered with a kick she'd practiced 1,000 times. Clean technique, perfect form. But Camden's momentum carried him wrong. His head turned at the exact wrong angle. The impact wasn't even that hard, but it was enough. He collapsed. The arena went silent. Medics rushed in. Naomi stood frozen, her hands shaking, watching them work on him. They took him away in an ambulance. She sat in a cold hospital waiting room for 6 hours before a doctor came out and said the words that destroyed her. "I'm sorry. He didn't make it." The investigation cleared her of wrongdoing. The footage showed legal technique. Camden's autopsy revealed a pre-existing condition, a weakness in his brainstem that nobody knew about. The commission ruled it a tragic accident, but the public didn't care about rulings. They wanted someone to blame. Camden's family called for her to be banned. Online forums called her a killer. Sponsors dropped her. Fellow fighters avoided her, and the guilt, the unbearable weight of knowing someone died because of her actions, even accidentally, crushed her spirit. So she walked away, changed her life, became invisible. Until now. The next morning, Naomi forced herself to go to the dojo. She expected reporters, but the crowd outside had tripled. News vans lined the street. Someone had leaked the story about Camden Taylor. The questions shouted at her were different now. "Naomi, do you regret what happened to Camden Taylor? Should you be allowed to fight after killing someone? What do you say to his family?" She pushed through, tears stinging her eyes, and locked herself inside the dojo. Tessa was already there, looking panicked. "I tried to call you. They've been here since sunrise. Drake is—" She hesitated. "He's not handling this well." "What do you mean?" "He found out about your past, about Camden, and he's using it." Naomi's blood ran cold. "Using it how?" Tessa pulled up her phone and showed her a post. Drake's official account, posted 2 hours ago. "Just learned that my recent sparring partner has a history the public should know about. Camden Taylor died because of her actions. Before you celebrate her, remember there's blood on those hands. I agreed to fund a scholarship, but I'm reconsidering given this new information." The comments beneath were a war zone. Some people defended Naomi, others condemned her. The story was spiraling out of control. "He's scared," Tessa said quietly. "The viral video made him look bad, and now he's trying to save face by painting you as the villain." Naomi felt sick. "Where is he?" "In his office." She walked to Drake's office and pushed open the door without knocking. He looked up from his computer, his expression guarded. "You want to destroy me?" Naomi said, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "Fine. But don't you dare use Camden's name to do it. I'm just telling the truth." "The truth? You didn't care about the truth when you were mocking me, when you challenged me. You wanted to humiliate someone you thought was beneath you. And when it backfired, when the world saw who you really are, you can't handle it." Drake stood up. "You killed someone, Naomi. That's a fact. It was an accident. It was ruled an accident. And I've lived with that guilt every single day for 12 years. Her voice cracked. "But you don't get to weaponize someone's death because your ego is bruised." They stood facing each other, the air thick with tension. "The scholarship is off," Drake said coldly. "I'm not associating my name with someone like you." Naomi's heart shattered, but she kept her voice steady. "Then I quit. I won't clean your floors anymore. I won't stay where I'm not respected." She turned and walked out, her vision blurred with tears. Outside, the reporters swarmed. She pushed through them, refusing to answer questions, and kept walking. 3 blocks. 5. She didn't stop until she reached Mr. Han's studio. He opened the door before she could knock, his face full of concern. "I saw the news." She collapsed into his arms, sobbing. All the strength she'd shown in the ring, all the control and grace crumbled. She was just a woman carrying 12 years of guilt and pain. Mr. Han led her inside and sat her down on the mats. He made tea and waited until her breathing steadied. "Tell me what you need," he said gently. "I need to stop running. I need to face this. Then face it. But on your terms." That afternoon, Mr. Hahn drove Naomi to a place she hadn't been in over a decade, Camden Taylor's grave. The cemetery was quiet, peaceful. His headstone was simple: Camden James Taylor, beloved son and fighter, gone too soon. Naomi knelt in the grass, her hands trembling. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry for what happened. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I ran away instead of honoring your memory properly." The words poured out, years of apology she'd never given voice to. When she finished, she felt lighter. Not forgiven, maybe, but heard. As they walked back to the car, Mr. Hahn spoke. "Victor Kane contacted me this morning. He told me something you should know." "What?" "Camden's parents. They forgave you years ago. They wrote you a letter, but you'd already disappeared. They wanted you to know it wasn't your fault, that Camden knew the risks, that they held no anger toward you." Naomi stopped walking. "They forgave me?" "They did. Camden's younger brother even became a martial arts instructor. He teaches kids about safety and respect in the ring. He honors his brother's memory by making the sport better." The information cracked something open inside her. All these years, she'd assumed Camden's family hated her, that they blamed her. But they'd moved forward with grace while she stayed trapped in guilt. "I need to talk to them," she said. "Victor has their contact information when you're ready." That evening, back at her apartment, Naomi sat with Jordan and explained everything. About Camden, about the accident, about the guilt that had shaped her life for so long. Jordan listened quietly, his young face serious. When she finished, he crawled into her lap. "Mama, accidents happen. You didn't mean to hurt him." "I know, baby. But knowing that and feeling that are different things. Are you going to fight again? At that big expo thing everyone's talking about?" Naomi hadn't even processed that Drake had publicly challenged her to a rematch at the upcoming martial arts expo. The announcement had been made that morning, before everything exploded. "I don't know. I think you should. Not for him. For you." Jordan looked up at her with those wise eyes. "You can't keep hiding from who you are." Later that night, after Jordan fell asleep, Naomi found an anonymous note that had been slipped under her apartment door. She unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was messy but earnest. "Even a mop can reflect a warrior's soul. Don't let the past dim your shine." No signature, but somehow she knew. Drake had written it. Despite everything, despite his public betrayal and harsh words, some part of him recognized what she'd taught him. Some part of him was changing. Naomi sat on her couch, the note in her hands, and made a decision. She would face Drake at the expo. Not to prove anything to him or the world, but to prove something to herself. That she could step into the ring without fear, that Camden's memory could be honored through continued growth, not continued hiding. That being strong meant accepting your past, not running from it. She picked up her phone and called Victor Kane. "I'm ready to tell my story," she said when he answered, "and I'm ready to fight." His response was immediate. "I'll set everything up. The expo is in 2 weeks. We'll control the narrative, your way." As she hung up, Naomi looked at her reflection in the darkened window. She didn't see a janitor anymore. She didn't see a killer. She saw someone who had fallen and was learning to stand again. And this time, she wasn't standing alone. 2 weeks had never felt so long and so short at the same time. Naomi spent every spare moment training with Mr. Hahn, not building strength, but rebuilding spirit. The Camden Taylor story had spread everywhere, dividing public opinion sharply. Some called her a hero who'd overcome tragedy. Others called her reckless and dangerous. But for the first time in 12 years, Naomi wasn't running from the conversation. She'd done an interview with Victor Kane's media contact, telling her side of the story with honesty and vulnerability. She talked about the accident, the investigation that cleared her, and the guilt that haunted her anyway. The interview went viral, generating both support and criticism, but at least it was her truth being told. The expo arrived on a Saturday morning. The convention center was massive, gleaming with banners and sponsor logos. Multiple rings were set up for different matches throughout the day, but everyone knew the main event. Naomi Richardson versus Marcus Drake, the janitor and the champion. Round 2. Naomi arrived with Jordan and Mr. Han 2 hours early. The parking lot was already filling up. Tour buses from other states, news vans, people carrying signs that read Team Naomi and others that read Drake Forever. This wasn't just a match anymore. It was a cultural moment. Inside the convention center, the energy buzzed like electricity. Vendors sold merchandise, martial arts schools had recruitment booths, but the largest crowd gathered around Ring 1, where the main exhibition would take place. Naomi found the women's locker room and changed into her simple white G. No sponsors, no flashy designs, just clean fabric and her name embroidered simply on the back. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. 2 weeks ago, she was invisible. Today, she was center stage. "You ready?" Mr. Han appeared in the doorway. "As ready as I'll ever be. Remember what we practiced. This isn't about proving anything to Drake or the crowd. This is about proving something to yourself." She nodded, trying to steady her breathing. Jordan ran over and hugged her waist. "You're going to be amazing, Mama. Win or lose." "Win or lose," he confirmed. Meanwhile, Drake was in the men's locker room surrounded by his team. His coach worked on his shoulders while students hyped him up with encouraging shouts. But Drake's mind was elsewhere. He'd spent 2 weeks wrestling with himself. The viral video. The backlash. The moment Naomi caught him from falling, showing him more grace than he'd ever shown her. He'd posted that cruel message about Camden Taylor out of fear and wounded pride. But watching the response, seeing how people turned on him for weaponizing tragedy, forced him to look in the mirror. He didn't like what he saw. The anonymous note he'd slipped under Naomi's door had been his first attempt at apology. Weak, cowardly even, because he couldn't face her directly. But it was something. "You good, Sensei?" one of his students asked. "Yeah," Drake lied. "I'm good." At noon, the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main exhibition match. This is a full-contact sparring demonstration between 2 skilled martial artists." The crowd roared as Drake entered first, walking through the tunnel to thunderous applause mixed with scattered boos. He wore his signature black jai with gold trim, sponsors plastered across his back. His entrance music pumped through the speakers. He raised his fists to the crowd, playing the role of champion, even as doubt gnawed at him. Then Naomi's turn came. No entrance music, no fanfare. Just her name announced, and the crowd erupting into a mix of cheers and jeers. She walked calmly to the ring, Jordan and Mr. Han following close behind. When she stepped onto the mat, she bowed deeply to all 4 corners, honoring the space and the art. A reporter near ringside spoke into her microphone. "This is unprecedented. A single mother who works 2 jobs facing a regional champion in front of thousands. Whatever happens today, Naomi Richardson has already proven something powerful." The referee called both fighters to center. Drake and Naomi stood face to face, the tension palpable. "This is a 3-round exhibition," the referee explained. "Controlled contact. Respect the tap. Respect each other. Understood?" They both nodded. Drake extended his hand. Naomi looked at it, then at his eyes, searching for sincerity. She found something there. Something different from 2 weeks ago. She shook his hand. "May we both learn something today," she said quietly, echoing her words from their first match. Drake's jaw tightened. "We already have." They returned to their corners. The bell rang. Round 1 began with both fighters circling cautiously. Drake came in first with a testing jab. Naomi deflected it smoothly. He followed with a combination, faster than before, more technical. He'd been training seriously, not just for show. Naomi defended, her movements fluid and economical. The crowd watched in tense silence as the two fighters exchanged strikes and blocks, neither landing anything significant. It was clear both had come prepared. "She's better than last time," one commentator observed from the broadcast table. "Her footwork is exceptional." "And Drake is fighting smarter," another added. "Less ego, more strategy." Midway through the first round, Drake attempted a high kick. Naomi read it, ducked under, and countered with a swift strike to his midsection. It connected cleanly. The crowd gasped. Drake stumbled back, winded but not hurt. "Point to Richardson," someone shouted, though this wasn't a scored match. Drake reset, his expression focused. He came back with renewed intensity, pushing Naomi toward the edge of the ring with a flurry of strikes. She defended well, but was clearly being pressured. The round ended with Drake having slight momentum. In Naomi's corner, Mr. Hahn wiped her face with a towel. "He's stronger than last time, more focused." "I know. He's not underestimating me anymore." "Good. That means he respects you now. Use that." Jordan leaned over the ropes. "You're doing great, Mama." She smiled at him, drawing strength from his unwavering faith. In Drake's corner, his coach was intense. "You're doing good, but don't let up. She's waiting for you to make a mistake." "I know," Drake said, breathing hard. He glanced across the ring at Naomi. She sat calmly, her breathing controlled, her eyes clear. How did she look so composed? Round 2 began with both fighters more aggressive. Drake opened with a spinning back fist that Naomi barely avoided. She countered with a front kick that caught his shoulder. They exchanged combinations, the speed and precision increasing. The crowd was on their feet now, the energy electric. Naomi began to find her rhythm. Her strikes became sharper, her timing better. She landed a clean punch to Drake's ribs, then another to his shoulder. Drake's defenses tightened, but he was starting to slow. The aggressive pace was taking its toll. "She's wearing him down," the commentator noted. "This is tactical brilliance." Drake tried a powerful roundhouse kick. Naomi sidestepped and responded with a sweep that took his supporting leg out from under him. He hit the mat hard. The arena erupted. But Naomi didn't attack. She stepped back, waiting for him to rise, giving him the same respect she'd shown before. Drake got up, frustrated but also moved by the gesture. The referee checked him. He nodded that he was okay, and the match continued. The rest of round 2 was intense but controlled. Both fighters pushed hard, testing each other's limits. When the bell rang, it was clear Naomi had won the round. Between rounds, Drake sat in his corner, his chest heaving. His coach leaned in close. "You need to end this next round. Go all out." Drake nodded, but his heart wasn't in it. He looked across at Naomi again. She was talking to Jordan, laughing at something the boy said. There was joy there. Peace. Something Drake realized he'd lost along the way in his pursuit of glory. Round 3 began, and Drake came out with everything he had. His strikes were powerful, precise, relentless. Naomi defended against the onslaught, her technique absorbing and redirecting his energy. The crowd roared with every exchange. But then something shifted. In the middle of a combination, Drake's foot slipped slightly. Just a fraction. But enough. Naomi saw the opening and countered with a perfectly timed strike to his chest. Not hard enough to injure, but clean enough to be definitive. Drake stumbled backward, and Naomi followed with a sweep that brought him down again. This time she placed her hand gently on his shoulder as he lay on the mat, a gesture that said, "It's over." The referee stepped in, signaling the end of the match. The crowd exploded into cheers and applause. Naomi had won clearly and decisively, but she didn't celebrate. She extended her hand to Drake, helping him up just as she had in their first match. He took it, his pride wounded but his spirit somehow lighter. "You could have destroyed me," he said quietly. "That was never the point." They stood in the center of the ring as the referee raised Naomi's hand in victory. The crowd gave them a standing ovation, not just for the match, but for what it represented: respect, growth, humility. Drake raised Naomi's other hand himself, acknowledging her victory publicly and completely. Cameras flashed. The moment would be replayed for years to come. As they bowed to each other one final time, Drake leaned close and whispered, "The scholarship. I'm funding it. For real this time. It's the right thing to do." Naomi's eyes glistened with tears. "Thank you. No, thank you for teaching me something I forgot." They walked off the mat together, not as enemies, but as fellow martial artists who'd both learned valuable lessons. 3 months had passed since the expo. The world had moved on to new viral moments and fresh controversies. But for the people involved, everything had changed. The Clean Fight Foundation officially launched on a crisp autumn morning. The ceremony was held at the newly renovated community center on the south side of town. Banners hung from the ceiling announcing free martial arts classes for underprivileged children. Mats covered the floor. Equipment lined the walls. It was beautiful. Naomi stood at the front of the room, wearing a simple instructor's GI, addressing the crowd of donors, community leaders, and excited children who'd signed up for classes. "When I was cleaning floors at a dojo months ago, I never imagined standing here today," she began, her voice steady and warm. "But this foundation isn't about me. It's about every kid who's been told they can't afford to chase their dreams. It's about showing them that strength comes in many forms, and all of them are valuable." The crowd applauded. Jordan sat in the front row beaming with pride. Next to him sat Mr. Han, his eyes glistening with emotion. "I also want to thank someone who made this possible," Naomi continued. "Someone who started as an opponent, but became a partner in this mission. Sensei Marcus Drake." Drake stood from his seat in the middle row and made his way to the front. The applause was warm but measured. People remembered his initial cruelty, but they also recognized his growth. He took the microphone, clearing his throat nervously. "I'm not great at speeches, so I'll keep this short. A few months ago, I challenged someone because I thought it would be funny. I thought I was better than her because of my title and my trophies." He paused, his voice catching slightly. "But she taught me that real strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about how you treat people when you have power over them. I failed that test initially, but I'm committed to passing it now." He handed the microphone back to Naomi, and they shook hands. The applause grew louder, genuine this time. After the ceremony, the first class began. 20 children, ages 8 to 14, lined up on the mats. Naomi led them through basic stances while Drake assisted, helping kids adjust their form. His approach was gentler than it used to be, more patient, more focused on encouragement than criticism. Eli was there too, having volunteered to help teach beginner classes. He worked with a shy girl who reminded him of himself when he started. "You've got this," he told her quietly. "Just keep trying." In the corner, Jordan was part of the class, finally learning martial arts properly. His face was pure concentration as he practiced his front stance. Naomi watched him with a full heart. Later that afternoon, after the students left, Naomi found herself alone in the center, sweeping the mats. Old habits died hard. Drake walked in carrying 2 bottles of water. "You don't have to clean anymore, you know," he said, offering her one. "I know, but there's something meditative about it." She took the water and smiled. "Plus, someone wise once told me that even a mop can reflect a warrior's soul." Drake's face flushed. "You knew that was me?" "The handwriting gave you away. You write your 7s weird." He laughed, genuinely amused. "I'm sorry about everything. The mockery, the public post about Camden Taylor, all of it. I was scared of being shown up, so I lashed out. I know, and I forgive you. We all carry things that make us act smaller than we are. They sat on the edge of the mat, looking out at the empty training floor that would soon be filled with kids chasing their potential. "What happened to your dojo?" Naomi asked. "I sold it. Used the money to fund this place properly. Figured it was time for a change." He paused. "Besides, I wasn't really teaching anymore. I was just performing. There's a difference." "What will you do now?" "I'm opening a small gym focused on rehabilitation and wellness. Working with people recovering from injuries, dealing with trauma." Mr. Hahn agreed to consult with me. Drake smiled. "Turns out humility opens doors that arrogance kept locked." Naomi nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. That evening, Naomi walked home with Jordan as the sun set behind the buildings. The air was cool, autumn leaves crunching under their feet. "Mama, do you miss cleaning the dojo?" Jordan asked. "Sometimes. It was simple, predictable. But this is better, right?" "Much better." They walked in comfortable silence for a while before Jordan spoke again. "Do you still think about Camden, the guy from your past?" Naomi had visited Camden's family last month. It had been emotional and healing. His mother had hugged her and said, "You gave my son respect by walking away when you were hurting, but you honor him more by coming back and teaching others safely." His younger brother, now an instructor himself, had invited her to guest teach at his gym sometime. "I think about him every day," Naomi answered honestly, "but not the way I used to. Now I think about how to make sure other fighters don't have to experience what we did, how to make the sport safer, how to teach respect alongside technique." "That's good, Mama. That's really good." When they got home, there was an envelope under the door. Naomi opened it to find a check for $5,000 and a note from Victor Kane. "For the foundation. You earned this by being brave enough to tell your truth. Proud of you." She smiled, tucking the check away safely. The foundation's first month had exceeded all expectations. They had enough funding for 2 years of operations, a waiting list of students, and a growing network of volunteer instructors. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. "Miss working with you. The new receptionist isn't nearly as interesting. Coffee soon?" Naomi replied. "Definitely. This weekend." "Perfect." As she made dinner for Jordan, simple spaghetti and sauce, she thought about how much had changed. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was teaching, leading, building something meaningful. But she also wasn't defined by the viral moment or the attention. She was just Naomi, a mom, a martial artist, a person who'd fallen and learned to stand again. Later that night, after Jordan fell asleep, Naomi stood at the window of their small apartment, looking out at the city lights. She thought about the journey from mopping floors in the darkness to teaching students in the light. It hadn't been easy. It had been painful, exposing, terrifying at times. But it had been worth it. Her phone buzzed one more time, a message from Drake. "Same time tomorrow for the kids' class?" She smiled and typed back, "Same time. See you then." As she set her phone down, she caught her reflection in the window. She looked different now. Not just physically, though she was stronger, but something in her eyes had changed. The fear was gone. The shame had lifted. In their place was something steadier, something that looked a lot like peace. The next morning at the foundation, Naomi arrived early. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting warm light through the windows. She walked to the supply closet and pulled out a mop, just for old time's sake. She began cleaning the mats, the familiar motion bringing a smile to her face. This floor was different from the one she used to clean. This one was hers. Well, theirs. Hers and Drake's and every kid who would train here. Drake arrived a few minutes later and found her mopping. Without a word, he grabbed the other mop from the closet and joined her, taking the far half of the floor. They worked in comfortable silence, Two people who'd found unlikely common ground through conflict and growth. When they finished, the floor gleamed like a mirror, reflecting not just their images but everything they'd become. The cleanest floor, Drake said softly, echoing the title of this chapter of their lives. The cleanest floor, Naomi agreed. Students began arriving. Jordan ran in first, his new GI still crisp and white, his smile wide and genuine. Eli followed with 3 new kids he'd recruited from his high school. Tessa showed up with coffee for everyone, having volunteered to help with administrative work on weekends. Mr. Hahn arrived last, his presence calm and grounding as always. He bowed to the room, and everyone bowed back, a sign of respect, a sign of community. "Shall we begin?" Naomi asked, her voice carrying across the space. "Let's begin," the students replied in unison, and so they did. Not with flashy techniques or competitive drills, but with basics, with breathing, with balance, with learning to fall safely and stand with dignity, with understanding that martial arts wasn't about defeating others, but mastering yourself. As the class progressed, Naomi looked around at the faces focused on learning, at Drake patiently helping a struggling student, at Jordan executing a perfect stance, at Eli demonstrating technique with growing confidence, at Mr. Hahn observing with quiet pride. This was what victory looked like. Not a raised hand in a ring, not viral videos or headlines, but ordinary people gathering in an ordinary space, choosing to be better than they were yesterday, choosing to fall and choosing to rise, choosing to clean what they'd dirtied and build what they'd broken, choosing strength without pride, courage without arrogance, and success without forgetting where they came from. The morning light filled the center, warming the mats and the hearts of everyone there. Somewhere in the back of her mind, Naomi heard her own voice, the words she'd spoken at the expo, and would carry with her forever. Some people chase power, some clean up after it, but real strength is knowing when to stop fighting and start teaching. And here, in this space she'd helped create, with these people she'd helped transform, Naomi had found exactly that. Real strength, real purpose, real peace, the cleanest floor she'd ever known. When someone underestimates you because of the work you do or the struggles you face, do you hide your strength to keep the peace? Or do you stand tall and show them exactly who you are? If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible tales of courage, redemption, and the quiet power that changes everything.